And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing this fine spring day?
I'm doing well, Jersey Joe. How are you?
I'm doing great, just thanks. Had to mow my lawn again today. How about you?
I mowed it for the first time this weekend.
All right. Well, first time, and how'd that work out for you?
My new lawn, my new gasoline powered lawnmower
You
worked
didn't
really.
get the battery one, huh?
Nope.
All right. All right. Well, today's the 23rd of April. Do you know what major religious holiday started yesterday?
Passover. And do you know what major event is happening in Pennsylvania today?
No.
It is the Pennsylvania primary.
Pennsylvania primary on the second day of Passover. And by the way, Passover is a week-long observance. Interesting. Interesting. All right. By the way, we're probably not going to get to everything we have on our take. We lost a few minutes at the beginning here, but you know who actor and comedian Ricky Gervais is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, our quote of the day is on Ricky Gervais on what marked the beginning of the end of society as we know it. Um, our stupidest thing I've heard all week comes to us from Colorado, where a female Colorado legislator rather, explains why women like you shouldn't own guns. And she goes on and on to say some incredibly stupid things about about how making a school a gun-free zone makes the kids safe, which the data shows the exact opposite. Um, we'll tell you in which city the rats are getting high and why they're getting high. Have you ever heard of doped up rats running around,
No.
falling over, falling over high?
No.
We'll tell you about that. Um, we'll also tell you how many millionaires call New York City home. I was astounded by the number. When we get to that, I'll ask you what your best guess is. We'll play a clip of how Chinese criminal gangs are flooding the U.S. market with illegal marijuana and how that's putting many legal dispensaries out of business. Is marijuana legal in Pennsylvania?
Medical, yes. I don't know about recreational actually.
Well, if it's like most states, there's a ton of black market stuff, and I'll tell you why. Black market is putting legal sellers out of business. And the most touching story you'll hear this week, we'll tell you about a 7-year-old girl in Alabama who opened a lemonade stand in front of her house, why she opened it, and how the community responded. It is the most touching story, actually, that I've heard so far this year. Have you heard about that one?
I did hear about that one.
All
Very
right.
sweet.
Well, we'll talk about it when we get to that one. Um, you know who Senator Bob Menendez is?
I do, yes.
He's a New Jersey senator. He's a senator from New Jersey. Both he and his wife are on sentenced to go on trial for bribery and corruption. And we're going to talk about a novel. By the way, this is his second time. He was tried a couple of years ago and got acquitted. This is his second time being indicted, and we'll tell you about a novel strategy he and his wife are apparently getting ready to employ in their corruption trial. And going along with our with the that stupidest thing I've heard all week, where that woman doesn't think women should own guns, we'll bring you a taxpayer relief shot from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, where a single woman shoots and kills an intruder trying to break into her home in the middle of the night. And again, this is a single woman that representative doesn't think should own a gun. By the way, do you know where Beaver Falls is?
I do believe it's out by Pittsburgh.
Okay. In fact, I think you're right because it was from a Pittsburgh TV station. All right. So let's go right on to our quote of the week from and comedian Ricky Gervais. And he said, "The world began to crumble when feelings started to overrule facts." Now, have you seen anything like that?
No.
Well, I have, because when you look at some of this legislation, uh, people are advocating and passing and calling for all sorts of legislation that is based purely on feelings and have nothing to do with fact. In fact, the facts say what you're calling for and what you're predicting is 100% contradicted by the facts, but people go ahead and do it anyway. And I think one of our quotes of the week a couple of months ago was from the late Nobel winning economist Milton Friedman. He
Mhm.
said, too many government programs are judged by their intentions rather than their results. And that kind of goes hand in hand. Well, you've heard what if we need to do this if it would only save one life. No,
Mhm.
um, saving one life is a feeling. It's not a fact. In fact, many times what they wind up doing is they save one life over here on the left, and it costs 10 lives, but then the law of unintended consequences, right? Well,
Yep.
something that saves one life one place winds up costing other lives other place. So I see this over and over and over, where people are either enacting or advocating for legislation and policies that are not supported by any facts whatsoever. But it's referred to as feel-good legislation, right? Like making, like gun-free zones are feel-good legislation. In fact, as we're going to find out later on, having more guns in schools in the hands of the right people makes a school safer, not less safe. I don't know if you agree with that or
Yeah.
disagree with that, but I've got a
Yep.
lot of data that shows that. Anyway, do you want to hear some of that stupid stuff?
Yeah.
All right. This is a Colorado state representative. She's in the state legislature, and her name is Mandy Lindsay, Lindsay. And I've got several clips. I had to take this from a radio show, and the host kept interrupting her. So I'm going to play 3 short clips. Each one's only about 10 seconds. So here's the first one, and she's talking about why women like you shouldn't have guns. And she quotes some statistics which are absolutely 100% incorrect in what she's inferring from them. And here we go.
Tiny gem. Spaces. K through 12 schools are currently safe havens from gun violence because guns are prohibited in these locations by state and federal law. Our children are safer by not being surrounded by firearms in a place where they spend a majority of their waking hours.
Now, has state and federal law ever stopped a school shooter? Ever?
Never.
Ever. In fact,
Never.
I happen to keep I actually have a database of this stuff, and I can tell you for a 100% fact that in every single school shooting where a school shooter entered a school with the intent of shooting someone, I'm not talking about accidental shootings, that there has never been a good guy with a gun in a school where an active shooter has shot and killed someone. I can say that for an absolute fact. And here she is saying, well, state and federal law makes our, because state and federal don't can you think of any school shooter ever walked up and said, oh, wait, I better not go in there because state and federal law makes it a crime? You're there to kill people. Do you give a crap that
No,
you're about
absolutely
to
not.
No.
These are either criminals or people who have deep mental
Yeah.
issues. They are not thinking or caring about the laws.
Right. They're either crazy or evil. And if you're about to commit murder, you're not worried about breaking some state or federal regulation. And by the way, she's absolutely wrong. State and federal regulations do not prohibit guns in schools because you can have a school resource officer. In fact,
Yep.
there's a program called FASTER, FASTER. It's go to faster.org. It's called FASTER Saves Lives. In 12 states for more than a decade now, staff members and teachers who volunteer can undergo a week's worth of rigorous training taught by active duty SWAT officers that at the completion of that week's worth of voluntary training, they become school security officers, and they are permitted to carry guns with them, concealed weapons, or keep in school. And in over a decade, we're talking 3,000 teachers in the state, and there's never been an accidental shooting. There's never been one of those teachers have lost control of their guns. And more importantly, in none of those hundreds of schools, by the way, where that program is in place, and they always put a big sign out front that this school is protected by armed teachers and staff who will prepare to use deadly force. In not one of those schools has there ever been an active shooter enter that school. And that we have a decade's worth of data. So this woman, when she says state and federal law prohibit guns in schools, number one, she's wrong on 2 counts, because no, it doesn't prohibit. There are exceptions to allow guns in schools. And 2, criminals don't give a crap about regulations like that. Now let me move on to, I think, the next one, where she explains why you shouldn't have a gun, producer Susan. So let me go ahead here. The 1309.
And it is fastersaveslives.org, not faster.org.
Yeah, fastersaveslives.org.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for catching that. Here we go. Okay. Why can't I get this right where I want it to go? Well, we'll have to start it here.
12 schools are currently safe havens from gun violence because guns are prohibited in these locations by state and federal law.
First of all, she doesn't even know.
All right, that was repeat. Here we go. I need to jump ahead to 1614. There we go.
Basketball player. How do they feel about this?
But allowing guns on campus won't make women safer, but will give women and other students more reason to fear potentially armed predators and rapists. FBI data shows that women were 100 times more likely to be killed by a man with a gun than use one in self-defense, the majority involving intimate partners. The most likely outcome in these situations is not a woman fending off a violent man with a gun, but a woman having her own gun used on her.
There is no FBI data showing that women die because their own gun was used against them. Now, is it true that that 100 times more women are killed by a gun than use a gun to kill somebody else? Yes. Why do you think that is? Well, because number one, most women don't have guns. So when a crazy ex-boyfriend or ex-husband or an intruder comes into their house and they're unarmed, yes, 100 times for every one thug an armed woman kills with a gun, 100 women are killed by an intimate partner or an intruder. But that doesn't mean that a woman that having a gun makes a woman less safe. There was no there's an old saying in statistical analysis that correlation does not equal causation. I mean, would you feel safer with or without a gun?
With.
And if you had a crazy ex-boyfriend or a crazy ex-spouse, do you think you are less vulnerable or more vulnerable if you didn't have a gun? If you were worried about
If I didn't have a gun, I would feel vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. And she is absolutely twisted. There's the old Mark Twain saying, figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Yeah. And as I'm sure many listeners have heard over time, I have a dog that alerts me to stranger danger. So that gives me time to go and retrieve said gun.
Right. Anyway, so this woman is incredibly stupid. She's spewing stuff that, that's completely false. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how you thought. I just thought it's been a long time since I heard anything. She just goes on and on and on with I don't know if she knows that she's lying and doing it intentionally, or if she's just that clueless. What do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to say, maybe a little bit of both.
All right. Well, that's my stupidest thing I've heard all week. All right. Rolling right along here. So you want to know where rats are getting high?
Yeah, where rats getting high.
All right. The New Orleans chief of police told the City Council Criminal Justice Committee that the current headquarters and evidence rooms are infested with rats and cockroaches. And this is the rats. She said the rats are eating our marijuana, Kirkpatrick said, and they are all high. You can see them walking around the squad room, stupidly bumping into walls. Can you imagine walking? You see this rat weaving and bobbing and falling over and hitting and bumping into a wall because they're eating their marijuana in the evidence room. All right. We're going on to millionaires in New York City. 7 million people in New York City. How many millionaires do you think? You think 500, 1,000, 5,000? How many millionaires?
Oh no, I'm going to say like 300,000.
349,000 millionaires live in New York City. Now, that is
an expensive place to live.
That's, by the way, that's 5% of the population, which means roughly 1 in 20 people who live in New York City are millionaires. Can you
I
imagine?
actually thought the population of New York City was actually a bit higher.
I could be off by a little, but I thought it was 7 million.
I thought it was at least 8 million.
Well, maybe it's 8. So far, 4 or 5, but if you take out the kids, that would still be 1 in 20 adults. Okay. So 349,000 millionaires call New York City home. Just blew my mind when I found out. By the way, given the price, if you own an apartment in New York City without a mortgage, you're a millionaire because that's how much.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so expensive to live.
So expensive to live. Yeah. So if you own an apartment in New York City without a mortgage, you are a millionaire by definition, because it's all about wealth, not annual income. All right. You want to move on to the most touching story that I've heard?
Yeah, I did see this on the news. Very sweet.
All right, so let me bring this up. And this is from Alabama, about a 7-year-old girl who opened a lemonade stand and why she opened it and how the community responded. And here we go.
Could never be measured, perhaps one exception. CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road to Alabama.
A lot of kids in America want to run a lemonade stand, but not many feel like they have to. 7-year-old Emery Johnson started her business a few weeks ago after a terrible nightmare morning.
I woke up with the worst news of my life.
Emery's mother, Carly, died unexpectedly at the age of 29. She was a single mom and Emery's everything.
We go see mommy?
Which is why she couldn't understand, first time she went to the cemetery with her grandmother Jennifer, why everyone else got giant granite headstones, but her mom, just this tiny metal one. Did that bother you?
Mm.
Why?
Because it felt like she was being left out.
Her grandma tried to explain how they couldn't afford a headstone right now.
She had tears in her eyes and wanted to help.
So she did the only thing that she could think of to raise money.
Yes.
I made a lemonade stand.
A lemonade stand to pay for her mother's headstone. At first, she didn't make mention of her costs,
Thank you.
but word got out.
Thank you.
And before long,
Thank you.
Emery says it seemed like just about everyone here in Scottsboro, Alabama was thirsty for lemonade. The price was $1, but she says people liked it so much,
Cups do what?
they often paid more.
Thank you. The most that we got for one cup of lemonade was $300.
For lemonade?
Yeah, for one cup.
Whoa! So far, Emery's lemonade stand has raised more than $15,000, which will all go into savings because a monument company is now donating the headstone. But more importantly, Emery has taken that lemon life handed her and squeezed out hope.
Her comment was when all these people came, she couldn't believe so many people cared for her and loved her mommy.
They always say it takes a village to raise a child, but sometimes it also takes a village to mourn a mom. Folks around here take that role seriously, offering Emery comfort by the cupful and all the love she can drink.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Steve Hartman, on the road in Scottsboro, Alabama.
Is that the most touching story you've heard so far?
Yeah, Steve Hartman always hits home with those.
Yeah. Well, what a great story. And I just happened to stumble across it. And if you haven't heard about it, you can just go to the CBS website and find it. Just Google "girl opens lemonade stand to pay for mom's headstone." If you want, and we'll have a link to that if you want to put that up on the website, we'll have a link to that on the website. All right. So let's move on to Chinese gangs. And I've got a friend back in Denver that runs a marijuana store. And there's a strange quirk in the tax code where even if you're losing money, you still have to pay income tax. That's because the IRS, based on an old case, says you cannot deduct your marketing and selling and marketing overhead expenses. So if you rent a store and have a sales staff and pay utility bills on your store, none of that you can deduct as an operating expense. So let's say you have you run a dispensary and you made $100,000 profit. I'm sorry, but let's say you actually lost money. Let's say you lost $50,000, but you had $250,000 worth of overhead for, store rent, utilities, and staff wages. The IRS says, no, you can't deduct that $250,000 in overhead. So even though you lost $50,000, according to the way we calculate, you actually made a profit of $200,000 because you can't deduct the $250,000. So you have to pay us taxes on $200,000 of net profit, even though you had a net loss of $50,000. That's called the IRS Section 280E exclusion for overhead expenses. And let me just play this from, I believe, Another CBS clip on black. This comes from Maine.
Oh yeah, I saw this
Along
one.
Maine's rocky shoreline sits the quiet town of Machias.
People lobster fish, they clam and they log.
But last fall, a pungent smell woke up the neighbors. Local police and Chief Keith Mercier discovering more than $1 million in black market weed.
It was very organized.
More than 2,600 plants seized by police. Just one case in $1 billion black market marijuana boom now descending on rural states like Maine.
How in the world did black market marijuana set up shop here?
I think that was one of the draws, was being a rural community.
It's very isolated.
Ray Donovan is the former chief of operations for the DEA.
That would allow them to continue to grow the marijuana crops uninhibited.
Sheriff's office! Come out with your hands up!
Law enforcement now cracking down with at least 34 busts statewide since last June and more targets dotting the I-95.
That was 34 busts in just the state of Maine. And this is national. Here we go.
Corridor.
The information we have says that there's over 200 that are actively working right now.
24 states have legalized recreational marijuana, but most, including Maine, limit cultivation and impose steep taxes.
They're not buying licenses, they're not paying taxes, they're operating completely off the radar.
Editor of the Maine Wire, Steve Robinson, tracks suspected illegal grows.
A transformer of that size could probably serve 10, 15 homes.
And showed us this chicken barn turned illegal weed grow in Carmel, Maine.
These locations consume huge amounts of electricity.
But perhaps more shocking than the budding number of illegal grows, who is behind them?
By and large, we see Chinese organized crime behind black market marijuana.
Donovan says some criminal growers are also laundering millions through a deadlier drug trade.
Law enforcement figured out that the Chinese were running illegal marijuana grows by following the fentanyl supply chain.
That's correct.
Wow.
A dangerous network hiding out in an unlikely corner of America. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Machias, Maine.
So what that has between taxes, regulations, fees, inspections, that a legal marijuana dispensary selling marijuana at $400 an ounce is barely scraping by, whereas an illegal seller, the black market, they can sell marijuana at $120 an ounce, or 100 and make a fortune. And that's why more and more dispensaries, my friend in Colorado said about almost half of the dispensaries in Colorado have gone out of business in the last 5 years for that exact reason, because they just cannot compete with the black market. And again, 37% tax, state tax, federal tax, regulatory fees, inspection fees, reporting. It's just, again, government is, as usual, screwing things up. The whole big promise was, legalizing marijuana will end the black market trade. No, legalizing marijuana is causing the black market to thrive because of they can sell for a quarter of the price and make money, while people selling for $400 an ounce can barely stay in business. So any thoughts on black market marijuana?
Yeah, and I was one of the proponents. I thought, legalizing marijuana was a good thing because it would stop, some of the stuff you're riding off the street. You don't know what's in it. It could be fentanyl laced. And I was like, okay, at least now if it's legal, it can be regulated and it's going to be safer. But yeah, with all the taxes that the states are imposing, they're kicking them, they're shooting
fees and
themselves.
tax, And so, and obviously people are making the decision, okay, $400 an ounce at a dispensary or $120 an ounce from the guy, selling it out of the back of his car. By the way, in New York City, they sell legal marijuana at bodegas. There are literally more than 1,000 bodegas in New York City where you can buy marijuana. I think
it needs to get to the point where it's sold like cigarettes and liquor.
Yeah, well, that's how it is being sold, not legally, but you go
legally, where it needs to be legally sold, like alongside cigarettes and liquor.
Right.
And and there's tax on cigarettes and there's tax on liquor, but there's not a black market for cigarettes and there's not a black market for alcohol.
No. And again, so you've got to think 40 or 50 dispensaries in a city of, let's call it 8 million. You think it's 8 million people. You got 40 or 50 legal dispensaries in a city of 8 million people.
Yeah.
You have 1,000 bodegas are selling illegal marijuana. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's go on to Senator Menendez. So Senator Bob Menendez and his wife,
Mhm.
FBI raided their house a couple of months ago. They found gold bars in the closet.
Yep.
They found straps of $100 bills, $10,000. You know what a strapped bundle of $100 bills is,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So they found straps of $10,000 of bundled $100 bills stuffed into pockets of his suit jackets, hanging in his closet. They found the DNA of the people who were involved on the gold bars. They found the fingerprints of the guys on the money. Anyway, so the DOJ, Department of Justice, indicted both Menendez and his wife. By the way, and his wife was driving a Mercedes that had been given to her by another person who got a favor from Senator Menendez. So she's riding around town in a $70,000 Mercedes. They were both indicted together, but their lawyers demanded separate trials. And the new strategy is this: they're each blaming each other. So,
Mhm.
for instance, he's going to call his wife as a hostile witness. His attorney is going to try to blame her. He's going to put her on the witness stand. She's going to claim the Fifth Amendment, which is going to make her look guilty, which could
Yep.
cause some of the jurors to say, well, yeah, maybe it was all her. Maybe the senator didn't know what she was doing. She was selling his influence, and he didn't know that she was, doing all this behind his back. And when she goes on trial a month later, she's going to say, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't know, but I didn't know my husband was doing this. I just thought that, and they're going to blame each other, and it might work. What do you think of that?
What's the statute where you don't have to testify against your spouse? But yeah, this is messy. I see a divorce in their future.
No. This is by prearrangement. They've agreed to do this. They're going to do this on purpose.
I'm sorry, if you don't know what your spouse is doing, then you got something wrong.
No,
Of course, you know what your spouse is doing.
But that's their defense. I can't prove this, but apparently, behind the scenes, their lawyers have gotten together and say, all right, well, that's why they argued for separate trials, by the way, and separate attorneys, because this way they can each call their spouse as a hostile witness.
Yep.
They can make each other look bad they're all going to claim the Fifth Amendment.
They're twisting the law in their favor.
Twisting the law in their favor. And if they both get off, I'm going to walk away shaking my head because they're both guilty.
Because this is what politicians do.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. He goes on trial first. I think his trial starts the second week of May.
He's the very definition of a sleazy politician.
Sleazy politician is right. All right. I think that's all I've got here. Ready for a taxpayer relief shot? How much time?
Yeah. Yeah, you got it 5 minutes.
All right.
You got more than 5 minutes, actually.
All right. Well, here's why we call them taxpayer relief shot. This comes from the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida. Hang on. Come on.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right, so you remember that woman from Colorado that said women shouldn't own a gun because they'll be used against them. Well, here we go from Beaver Falls, PA.
Is now dead after the Beaver County District Attorney says he tried to break into this home right behind me, but that homeowner stood her ground.
The people that live in that house, they didn't bother anyone. They minded their own business.
Terrifying moments for the homeowner of this house on the 1000 block of 10th Avenue in Beaver Falls. Nate Bible, the district attorney for Beaver County, says a man tried to break into the home this morning. The woman inside heard glass breaking, went down to her basement to see what was going on, and that's when she saw a man she didn't know trying to get inside her home. Bible says the woman shot the suspect 3 times, killing him. Neighbors tell Pittsburgh's Action News 4 the area can be dangerous, and they're just glad their neighbor is safe.
There's been a lot of violence out here. There's been different shootings and stabbings, and I was shocked because the people over there, they're good people.
Roughly a half dozen officers were on scene investigating for hours. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 cameras capturing this video of Beaver Falls officers examining a gun on the front porch.
I don't know, there's a lot of police there now and there's never caution tape out here.
District Attorney Bible says that as of right now, that woman is not facing any charges. We're now reporting in Beaver Falls. Ava Rash, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
And I think you've got a castle doctrine law in Pennsylvania, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So you don't have to prove the mere fact that they were in your home or trying to get into your home is enough. So anyway, that's all I got for today, unless there's something you'd like to add.
Nope. I just, again, we talked many times about how important primary elections and these non-presidential elections are. And, you know,
And
I went out and did my civic duty this morning on my way to work.
Well, good for you. Jersey, yeah, we got our mail-in ballots and I'll be mailing in my mail-in ballot tomorrow, I think. Yeah, because
When's New Jersey's primary?
I think in about 3 weeks, but we got my ballot today. I don't pay attention to the actual day because I got the mail-in ballot, but I know I get them about 3 weeks ahead of time. I'll double check and let you know next time.
I will say I was shocked, and I'm curious to see what's on New Jersey. I don't know the rules with respect to like when names need to be, like when the ballots need to be approved, but Nikki Haley was still on the ballot.
Really, for president?
Yep.
For the Republican primary? I'll be darned.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all we got for today. We'll wrap it up. I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things that I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, producer Susan's going to put them up on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. And Jersey is spelled Jerzee, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, just send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. And unless you've got something else, producer Susan, we'll wrap up and we'll talk to you next week. Anything you want to add?
Yep. No, enjoy this beautiful weather today.
You and me both. All right. Talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.